Good evening. No, good afternoon. Sorry. Life as an editor. For many years, I edited films, ads, documentaries, everything till I made my first film. I'll try and talk about editing first. Or let's talk a little about the writing table first. You know, writing, when you're writing, actually, it's a place where you're dreaming. You can think of anything you want. There is no barrier there. You know, you start imagining whatever you want. There are no budgets, there are no schedules. There are no bad actors there. There are no cloudy days. You start imagining whatever you want. You know, you'll begin exterior, run off Kutch, morning. Then you say, no, early morning. No, very early morning. You know, barren land, a ray of light falls on the ground, pink sky which turns orange, and a massive sun which fills up the screen. Against there, a shadow of a man, a salute. He walks towards the camera like a panther. You can imagine anything you want. But when this shot reaches the editing room, it is different. Because the sun which was supposed to come out in the morning didn't come out till 9. It was a cloudy morning. Then the actor was supposed to be behind the sun was supposed to be behind the actor. It's gone up. Supposed to rise before the sun rose a little late, so you had to use a double. And who had drunk at night, so it didn't walk like a panther. So you have what is imagined and what reaches the editor are two different things. Because in between writing and editing, there's something called shooting. And which, whatever you imagine, it's never the same. Things are always different from what you imagine to what it reaches the editor. Now, what does an editor do? He has to save the film. He has to kind of rewrite whatever was imagined on the film and which didn't get executed the way it should have been done. So, before we start talking about writing, I'll actually go to editing first. I can see some editors here, so. I feel an editor is an unsung hero. You know, you can see the work of a cameraman. You can see how he frames a shot, how he lights up a shot, and you can say, this is good work. You can see the work of a production designer. You say, oh, great sets. You know, it's really showing the way it should have been, that period is there. You can see the work of a costume designer. You can see the work of a sound designer. You can see the work of a music composer, background score. But the work of an editor is usually invisible. His work cannot be seen. He is actually most of the time correcting mistakes of many other people. He is removing the pauses, extra pauses which an actor gave. He is removing the out of focus shots, replacing it with some reaction somewhere. He is actually solving many other problems. So you really can't judge the work of an editor. And you know, a lot of people ask me, what does an editor do? Because most people think, what does an editor do is joining shots. They say, director ने तो shoot कर लिया, आपके पास shots आ गए, और आपने NG हटा दिए, you took the okay shots. Then you start connecting. You say, okay, start here, end here, and you just joined shots. So that's the impression most people carry, that it's just a matter of joining shots. And I say no. Actually, editor is such an important cog in the wheel of filmmaking. He does much, much, much more than that. I'll tell you a small story which happened with me about 25 years back. I used to make ad films then. I was shooting for an ad film out of Mumbai, and that evening at dinner, I was sitting with the one of the client servicing guys from the agency. And the same conversation started, that what does an editor do? So I said, I said the ad we are shooting, look at it's a testimonial kind of a film. We are shooting 30 minutes with this person. We have to cut it down to 40. And it should also look in real time. It should not look that in 40 seconds we've made it look jump cuts. And so you have to give the tension, you have to create drama, you have to do all that. He said, नहीं यार, ये सब कुछ ऐसा नहीं होता है. Editor क्या करता है? Director shoot करता है, editor join कर देता है shots. So my blood in me boiled यार, as a being an editor. I said, नहीं, ऐसे नहीं होता है यार. Editor really works hard. And with every bottle of beer he was finishing, his belief became stronger and stronger that no, editor doesn't do anything. It's only the director who works. Editor क्या कुछ नहीं होता, shot join करता है, वो joiner है. I got really pissed. So next day I told one of my assistants, I said, just take a camera, go to him and tell him we are doing the making of this ad film and just ask him some random questions. Very random questions. He said, what? I said, ask him anything. Who's your favorite person on the set? How's the shoot going? How many times you eat in a day? Ask just random questions, don't worry. He said, why? I said, just do it. So he took a camera, went to the agency guy and said, I'm doing a making, and he kept on asking some random questions. We came back to Mumbai. I finished cutting the ad. I sent it to the agency, made sure it's approved, made sure the money has come in. After all that was done, then I took this footage. And all his answers, I took it. And all I did was just change the questions that were asked to him. I'll tell you what happened later with him, what I did. But I'll show you a little clip which, when I told this story to one of my assistants much later, after we had done Munna Bhai, so he got very excited with this experiment. He said, let me try. So he did this experiment. This is still a toned down version of what I had done to him. So I'll just show it to you that this is a very basic example of how is the same expression, same everything. The questions got changed and what happens. So I'm going to first play you a little clip where the actual questions are there and the actual answers are there, and then the change questions. So let's just have a look. So now these were the actual questions. Now I've just replaced the questions. See what happens. The agency guy was far more worse than this. I had put absolutely perverted questions and made a DVD of it and sent to his house to watch. At 1 in the night, I got a call from him, screaming at me, what the hell is this? I said, I gave you an example of what editing is. He said, it came in the hands of my mother. She played it on the DVD and now she's not believing whatever I'm telling her. Of course, I never got any work from them later. That's another story. So I'm saying it's a very basic example of what editing can do. You write something, you don't achieve what you have written, you can actually flip. You can change the meaning. I think what editing can do is really change the meaning of a story. And how does it happen? When you write something, what is your unit of writing? Your unit of writing is a word. When you put many words together, it makes a sentence. Sentences put together will make a paragraph, a chapter, and finally a book. Similarly, the unit of editing is a shot. The shots by themselves they might not contain the entire meaning. But when those shots are put together with many other shots, a new meaning emerges. And now imagine being able to change the shots, flip the shots. A shot also will have sound. Take the sound from here, put it somewhere else. So when in a film you have 10,000 shots, you have the liberty of using transitions, you have the liberty of using music, sound effects. So you can actually completely transform from what it was intended to be. So in film school, actually, we were constantly given this very basic example. So I really can't get into extreme details of, we'll do it someday. But I'll try to show basic things of how there used to be a Kuleshov experiment, which we were shown in the film school, where you've just taken 2 shots and one shot is later replaced and the entire meaning changes. So this This I've just picked up from somewhere, I'll just show it to you. So as you see, the expression is the same. Like in the example earlier I showed you about what we've done experiment in the office. Their expressions have not changed. Whatever they said has not changed, but the meaning has changed. Similarly here, first shot is the same. Second shot, what the lady is seeing, first she sees a person eating an ice cream, then she sees his dog. So the meaning completely changes. A viewer is actually quite capable of filling in the blanks. They start, so without really changing anything, you can, this is, as I said, it's a very basic example, but imagine when you have thousands of shots with you, it's like a jigsaw puzzle, it can completely transform the meaning of a film. I'll get you into a little bit of history. Don't worry, I won't bore you. You know, when cinema started, it was like theater. You know, camera was just sitting at one point, filming everybody in long shots. How you're sitting and watching me from there, you see one angle, that person sees from one angle. So camera was like that. The big brother was theater. Actors would come in from one side, exit the other side, like how they do it in the wings, come from here and go there. So it was just reproduction of life. It wasn't creating any drama. Whatever inherent drama was happening in the scene, but was being viewed from a long distance, more a reproduction of life. Then this famous story of Edwin Porter. One day he was playing with some shots. There was a shot of a fire office where fire brigade place, but a lot of these firemen were coming out of the office and running towards the fire engine. And there was another shot of some place where there's fire and people are struggling to get out of the fire. A third shot where these people enter and save them. And that's the way it was intended to be put. Firemen running out, people there, they reach and save them. So what he did, I think first time somebody made a cut where he took the shot of people in fire first, struggling to get out of the fire. Then he cut to this fireman leaving. Then again he went back to the fire, people struggling. Again he went back to more people leaving from the fire engine place. Again he went back to the fire. Again he showed them coming, and then they reached. So when this was screened, what happened? Suddenly amongst the viewers there was anxiety. There was anxiety that, oh God, will they live or will they die? Will they be able to reach on time? So what somebody had actually done was, first time you had jumped from one place to another place. You had jumped in space, you had also jumped in time. And there was a realization that this can create some tension. So they realized that editing was capable of creating tension. Editing was capable of creating drama. Then there was this man called Griffith, D.W. Griffith. This was possibly 10 years later from this, after this experiment happened. He took a close-up. For the first time a close-up was taken. Otherwise, as I said, life was just being reproduced in long shots. And when that was showed to the studio people, they said, no, we can't put a close-up in a film because people are paying full money for the ticket, and how will they will say, why are you showing us half the body, and they might not want to see it, studios. So, but finally, of course, it was screened to the people, and what they realized, what happened with people was suddenly, unlike a theater where you're watching from distance, this time they could go close to somebody's face and see the emotion on this face. It actually showed them the state of the mind of the person. He was crying and people started crying. So they realized the power of actually going close and being able to see what's happening inside the mind of that person. And that's when the use of editing started. They realized it can create drama, it can create tension, it can create anxiety, it can create humor if it's cut properly. And I actually strongly feel that Europe cinema is one of the most important inventions of the last century. And if there was no editing, possibly this would have died a natural death. It would have just been used to record history and something else like that. Cinema has reached wherever it is purely because of editing. And now, as you see, it's just growing. It's growing from one place to another. Aviya told me that don't talk too much about our history, talk about some of our own anecdotes. So I was trying to recall what have we done actually in editing which was unique. So I just remember a story from Three Idiots. If you all recall, there was a speech which Chatur, the character, gives on stage like this. And that was a speech which Amir had changed that speech. He comes on stage and delivers another speech, and which puts him into trouble. Now when we made the first cut, and let me tell you, the first cut will always be bad. Always will be bad. So when we made the first cut, we showed it to some people. The major reaction was, why is Amir doing this to Chatur? He's such a nice guy. What has he done? उसने क्या बिगाड़ा किसी का? आप उसके साथ क्यों ऐसा कर रहे हो? And in my head, when we were writing, in my head, Chatur was a guy who believed in a particular way of education. He was a guy who was doing rote learning and this thing. And then I realized it had not come through. Our attention was more on Virus, who was Baman, that Baman believed in education being in a certain way, and we were making him antagonist in our minds and not paying attention to this guy. That's why he was looking like an innocent guy. Then I said, what do we do? I went back to the rushes. I realized we had shots which we had not used in the scenes because thinking the scenes are getting longer. I had shots of whenever Amir was saying something, say in the machine classroom, I had shots of Chatur just sniggering at him, just saying, what the hell is he talking? When Baman is showing his pen, he says, who wants this pen? This guy is the most eager viewer who's wanting it in the first thing. So all I did in every scene, I just put some shots of this guy. That whenever Amir is talking some sense, this guy is sniggering. 4 or 5 places, all I did, I put the shots, I called back the same audience and showed this film, and the reaction had changed. They felt, yeah, this guy Bhagat believes his belief in education is wrong. He should be butchered like this. So it's nothing. It was just a few shots from here and there, and which just completely transformed the meaning. So you know what is happening today? If they are, this is advice to nahi deni chahiye, par thodi de dete aaj. If they are editing students, I can see a lot of students here. I'm sure some of them are film school students and editing students. There's something I'd like to tell all of you all that, you know what I see today, because the films are being now shot digitally, the quantum of rushes that we used to get when we were editing has multiplied many folds. There was a time when a 2-hour film, we would get about 10 hours of rushes, or 15, 20 hours of rushes. From that, we had to cut it to 2 hours. Now, because of digital, it's in lesser expensive, it's not so expensive, and people are putting 3 cameras, they're shooting rehearsals. So for 2 hours of film, you're getting 200 hours of rushes. And I've realized editors are not watching those rushes. The whole system has changed. The way we were trained was that go and first watch the rushes, twice watch the rushes, make notes of what you like in that. Okay shot, it's not necessarily the okay shot. There are millions of gems lying in not okay shots. There are great reactions lying. Some actors done some great performance here. Make a note of all those. Put it in your system before you attempt to edit. Now I see many editors actually, they don't even see the rushes. They have 2 assistants who come in, who see the rushes, who do basic edit. Then the editor walks in, he sees the first cut, and if he's seeing this, it's not consistent, it's not smooth, he just improves the smoothness of it. But he's not even seen the rushes. And I tell them, you know, you think you're working fast, but trust me, you will have to go back to the rushes, try and find the best shots, and you will end up wasting more time. And I've done it as an experiment. I have sat there and seen the rushes peacefully. I've given to somebody else, tum jaise karna hai. And I've finished in, you know, 1/4 of the time they edit. But all you need to have the patience to sit and watch your rushes. Trust me, there are gems all over the place, and you'll make a great edit. And I keep saying, don't edit only for the director. You say, okay, this is what the director wants, this is the story, but seeing these rushes is giving me great ideas. I think I can rewrite. Make your own cut, make your own edit. And once you make that edit, chances are somebody might see it and he say, I didn't see it like this. I can change it. So So there's basically great magic which can happen with editing. I think I should now shift to the other table. Oh, sorry, what is this? This to me. Now 3 Idiots is supposed to be a light-hearted comic film. Somebody's taken the same footage, the same shots, and made it look like a thriller. So the point I'm trying to make is that every shot can be used differently. You have support of background music, transitions, text, voiceovers. You have tons of tools as an editor to completely change the meaning of the film. And when it's not working the way it's intended in the script, use these tools to change the meaning. Sometimes you can make it reach where the script was intended to. Sometimes you can make it reach beyond where the script was supposed to go. There's one little more example I remember. I think the clip is there. Again, 3 Idiots. See, the whole film begins talking about Rancho. These friends are looking for a Rancho who had changed their lives, who was a great influence in their life. So the first 15-20 minutes are about Rancho, that how great he was, how great. And suddenly at one point, the story was shifting from Rancho to another guy called Joy Lobo. And the guy who eventually kills himself. Again in the screenings, test screenings when it did, a major reaction came. He says, "Yahan story suddenly gir jati hai." Because the story was moving away from the protagonist to another character, they felt disconnected. He says, "Okay, now another character's come, his story has started." For months we struggled, the same reaction was coming. And eventually all we did, I remember Abhijat was there, all we did was, we wrote a line. So from Amir doing 10,000 things, we wrote a line which said, "Ek aur tha, jo Rancho jaisa tha." And then we cut to this guy. And suddenly the viewer was engrossed. He says, "Oh, there's another like Rancho. Oh, what is he going to do?" So you kept the engagement alive. It's a quick clip, I'll just show it to you. Editing is emotion experienced. Before I go to writing, since Abhijat happens to be in Goa and he's here, and we've written all the films together, I would like to call Abhijat also on stage before we talk about writing. About plot points or conflicts and obstacles and how do we do it. We're just going to talk about a few things which we tend to follow when we write a script. We definitely keep all these things in mind while we are writing this. So one of the first things that we keep in mind is that a main protagonist should have a want. A film begins only when a character wants something. If there's no want of the character, then the audience also doesn't want it, they go home. So you have to have a very strong want. Want could be anything. Want could be, like in Munna, bhai, his want was to become a doctor. Or in PK, the want was to go back home. So you have to have an extremely strong want, which is what drives the film. You'd like to expand?
Okay. Since I've been listening to Raju sitting there, I think I'll tweak this a little and talk about, in this perspective, what is Raju's want when he's editing? He wants it to work. He wants the damn thing to work. And for that, he's prepared to do anything. So he told me once, and it's one of the most amazing things he said. He said, editing is like meditation for me. So I have seen this man editing for hours, forgetting the clock. And that's the want. You know that he really in my opinion, he's the greatest editor in this history of cinema. And I can say this because I've worked with Walter Murch. I've worked with Walter Murch, who has written Blink of an Eye, which is considered to be a seminal book. So the amount that I've learned from Raju, just through that sheer want to excel constantly. So in 3 Idiots, if you see, there's this desire on Rancho's part to excel. He wants to learn. He wants education. He doesn't want a degree. There is another want, and there is a conflict of wants, which, for instance, Virus wants to be right. He has lived an entire life based on a principle, and he's terrified of being proved wrong. So in order to be right, he can fail people, and finally he changes, of course. A Chatur can't change, because Chatur wants to succeed. He has no principles. So there is this battle of wants, and every film that we have written. Now when we are writing 3 Idiots, we are not so conscious of this, but it happened instinctively. But then later on what happens is that what was an instinct once, it becomes a tool. It becomes a part of your DNA. You have learned the principle and you try to recall that. So now, whenever Raju starts a film, he gives a very clear instruction. What is the character's want? If the want is not strong, there is no film.
So, even if it's a love story, the want is to find love. If it's a revenge story, if it's justice story, the character has to have a want. Otherwise, it's a spineless. I'm not saying they're hard and fast rules, but this is what we try and follow. There will be always exceptions. You'll find films which were without a want. But personally, we feel that you should have a character want.
Conflict is oxygen. Yes, conflict in life is not something which is welcome, but in cinema, without conflict, things get very boring very quickly. Javed Saab had told me a fantastic thing. I was asking him about Diwar, and I said that the intensity of that conflict that I see in Diwar, I don't think I've seen anywhere else. And I said that I asked him a question as a student, and I asked him that how did you achieve this? That when a lot of you would have seen Diwar, if you have not, please correct that and do see it. It's one of the truly great screenplays. And I asked him that how did you achieve this? That there is one unimpeachable argument. So when Amitabh Bachchan says कि पहले उसका sign लेके आओ, जिसने हमारे साथ ये किया, ये किया, ये किया, you are completely convinced that what he's saying is correct. And then the other character, the mother's character, कि उसने जो किया वो मेरा कौन था, वो कोई नहीं था. Right? When she says that, suddenly she has stopped that. She has gone beyond. So one unimpeachable, unanswerable argument, the other character tops that. And I asked him about it. And he told me that वो argument universe में कहीं होती है और वो हमें ढूंढनी पड़ती है. So he said कि you don't lessen the argument that you want should be strong, but the other argument should be as strong, and then you have to top it. वो argument कहीं universe में होती है. ये मेरे को याद रह गया. और if you've seen PK, at the end there is a debate between Tapaswi and PK, and in that debate we have given very strong arguments to Tapaswi. So the conflict is the heart of cinema. There are two kinds of conflicts. One is between a bad guy and a good guy. So that's what myths are based on, and that is one kind of conflict. The other kind of conflict, which is sometimes very, very fascinating, is two colliding points of view, where you feel both people are right and both have a point of view, and you are watching in shock as to who do I go with, and then probably you reach a conclusion at the end. And that is like the two opposite truths colliding is a conflict that I genuinely value.
See, what is exposition? Actually, when you write a story, you need to give the viewer a lot of information about your characters, about his background. Who is he? Where does he come from? What does he want? Now, all these, if you start writing scenes to give his background and his desires, he's going to get a very boring scene. So, the challenge is always to hide the exposition. Hide it under drama, hide it under conflict. Let it come. You think you're seeing a conflict, you're seeing drama, and within that you come to know about the character. So always your first draft of the scripts will not have it, because you feel the need to give information about those characters. So you tend to talk about them, and later you start removing it. Like there's this, I've carried that clip actually in 3 Idiots. The first opening scene when Madhavan is sitting in a plane and he brings the plane down. That was written, I still remember the first half was written very simple. He's in his home, he gets a phone call from Chatur, then he calls up Sharman, and both go. What we needed to communicate was that what Rancho means to Madhavan and Sharman. He's such an important man that they can do anything for him. And we just shifted the scene to a plane. So they have to bring down, he has to bring down the plane. Shall I just play it actually?
So in this same film, there's one example, which is one of my favorite examples of exposition. I recall a line from Billy Wilder, who had said that exposition should be like the whistle of a pressure cooker. It should build, tension should build. Don't give them easily. The moment you give them easily, they don't value it, information. Let the tension build and then it explodes. Like in Chinatown, is she your sister or daughter? Sister or daughter? Sister or daughter? He keeps slapping, and finally she says, she's my sister and my daughter. You know, now that horrific exposition comes through. But before that, there's tremendous tension. So in 3 Idiots, we were reading out scripts to people by then, and Swanand had pointed out that after interval, there was a huge high that, oh, it's a wrong guy, there's an imposter, there's a wrong guy in the photo. And you suddenly wonder, what is happening? Who is the real Rancho? What is going on? And then in the script, Javed Jafri was just sitting and telling his story, what happened. But Swanand told us that, that was a little downer. So we immediately got to work. We are greedy for that. If somebody points out a problem and we agree, then that's a great opportunity to improve it. So we are greedy for that kind of criticism. So when he pointed out, we started working, and then we came up with the idea of the 2 urns. That Shamal Das Chachad's asthis are being taken, and the 2 friends, they threaten Javed Jafri that uska visarjan ho jayega commode mein, and that's how he's compelled to tell the story. So compulsion is the key. And there's another example in actually Lage Raho Munna Bhai, which I sitting there remembered, because we had to show that at one point Munna realizes that he is hallucinating. Gandhi is just in his head. He's not actually meeting the Mahatma. It's not a ghost. He's actually hallucinating. How do you show that? And we recalled Russell Crowe just film, Beautiful Mind, and we remember the moment that 20 years after, he realizes that everything that he's been seeing is a hallucination because the kid is not growing up. 20 years ago, he had seen a girl who was 4 years old. She's still 4 years old. And he realizes through his rational mind that Marcy is not growing up. That's a great line. Marcy is not growing up. And we remembered that line. And we used it in that concept in a scene where the psychiatrist convinces Munna that he is hallucinating through pointing out that whatever he does not know about Gandhi, Gandhiji is not answering. And anything that Munna has read or knows, those are the answers that Gandhi is able to give. So this hallucination was an exposition. It can come in a very ordinary scene that a psychiatrist can sit and tell him. But there's a 4-minute scene where he gives a demo that in 60 seconds I'll prove that you're hallucinating. So we have also put a time bomb there. So the audience is again at the edge of the seat. Oh, how is he going to teach him in 60 seconds? And he does. So that's how exposition should come out.
So there's one story. Like Munna Bhai MBBS is not a story about a gangster wanting to become a doctor. It's eventually a story of doctors should be compassionate. So that's the theme of the film. When PK is wanting to go back as an alien to his own planet, he's lost the device. It's not the story of PK trying to find his device. It's a story of, in that journey, figuring out what God is and the way we perceive God today. Or for example, Three Idiots is not a film of just fun in a hostel, friendship. But it's a story of how education should be. It's about chasing excellence. It's about trying to do what gives you joy. So I'm not saying again that there should be a theme, but I think the moment you have a theme in a story, it just becomes the soul of the film, and you just feel extremely good about it.
So, for this actually, this makes me a little emotional because my partnership with Raju now is, I don't know how would I, it's like, seems like forever to me. I mean, I can't even recall a time when we are not working together, but it started because of one scene that I'd sent him. I first sent him a scene about 22 years ago, which was atrocious. And he had hated it, but he was very kind. He's one of the kindest people I know. So he knew that a creative person tries and does something. So he was not brutal with it. But from his reaction, I knew that it didn't work. So then I sent a second scene. And that scene was actually theme related. It was not, so in the first scene, because I'd seen Munna by MBBS, which I loved, and I had not written that. He had written it with other people, and I'd loved that film, so I was trying to copy that film. But that failed miserably. And so the second scene that I sent him was, I focused and I thought, what is the theme of this film? What would I want this film to be? And that's when I recalled a story that my professor of English had told me, Professor Niranjan Bhagat. And he had met a man in Paris named André Schwab, whose brother was killed by the Nazis for distributing pamphlets and doing propaganda. And when he was being taken through the streets of Paris to be shot, that man was shouting, "Bullets cannot kill ideas. Bullets cannot kill ideas." And that line I recollected from my college days, and I put it in that scene. That Gandhiji says that मुझे 3 गोलियों से मार दिया गया, लेकिन जमाने बदलते रहेंगे, लेकिन मेरे विचार 3 गोलियों से नहीं मर सकते, वो किसी न किसी के भेजे में केमिकल लोचा करते रहेंगे. These dialogues were not there at that time. It was a very different kind of a scene, but this concept was there. And then the call that I received from Raju when he read that scene, I was in Ohio at that time teaching. And that call is the most important thing that happened in my life. Because he was so kind and so generous. And that's the importance of the theme. I got all this entire privilege of writing with Raju because of that scene. And that was theme related.
Yeah, I recall that actually what he had written was, if you recall Lagero Manabhai, there are these old people who stay in a home together, second innings home, and one of them had died while he was protesting against the antagonist, and it's his funeral. And while he's being cremated, we see Gandhiji far away, and the piece of cloth is wearing that flies off, and you see 3 bullet marks on his chest. And Munna asks him, "What is this?" He says, Munna used to say something he wrote कि आपको भी तो 3 गोलियों से मार दिया, आप कहाँ बच पाए? He says, "पर मेरे विचार नहीं मर सकते," something like that. So which didn't stay in the film. Finally, we didn't kill those old guys. It changed, but it came right at the end of the film where he says, "You can kill me, but you can't kill my thoughts. They'll keep bothering the universe for a long time to come." So scenes obviously change. रूप बदलते रहते हैं, कहीं ना कहीं जाके finally fit हो जाते हैं. Actually, this is what Abhijat was just talking about, a strong point of view. This I recall an incident which happened with Baman Hirani, my first film, Munna by MBBS. And Baman used to love to rehearse a lot, so we had taken him on the location, the medical college, anatomy hall. So we were rehearsing there. And Baman kept on improvising, he kept on adding lines. There was a line he added in the script. The scene was where he's asking, it's the first year of the medical students, and he's asking them, why are you becoming a doctor? Why do you want to become a doctor? And one girl gets up and says, I want to serve people. I love people. I love my patients. So this line was not there. Paman came up with this line. He said, I don't love my patients. And the girl looks at him, and Paman said, because if I love my patients, I won't be able to operate on them. Like I won't be able to operate on my daughter. So I have to be absolutely dispassionate as a doctor. That's the only way I'll be able to treat them. So and the way Baman said it was with a lot of power. I said, Baman, this is a very, very interesting, very valid point, but don't use it. Because 30 seconds later, Munna is making a point कि form बनना ज़रूरी है क्या? So it'll make my protagonist very weak. Don't do it. So he said a very interesting thing. He said, he might be your protagonist, but as a character, I'm my own protagonist. I'm not antagonist. I don't think I'm a villain. I'm a hero. I can't live this life if I don't think I'm a hero. And I'm not a Gabbar Singh or a Mogambo who's killing people. I'm a doctor, and I believe this is my point of view. So I came back worried. I thought about it. I said, okay, it's a very interesting point. Now it's my job to make the protagonist more stronger so that we beat this point of view and still show. So we went on the compassion that, okay, you're dispassionate with your thing, but you should be compassionate towards your people in some way. So that's one thing I learned from him, and that's why we try to follow every time. Like even when we did 3 Idiots or PK, which Abhijat was just talking, we realized that the antagonist should have a very strong point of view. Then it's fun. If his point of view is not strong, then there's no battle, there's no conflict. So even in 3 Idiots, when Baman says, life is a race. आप तेज नहीं भागो तो कोई आपसे आगे निकल जाएगा, कुचले जाओगे, हम अंडों की तरह टूट जाएंगे. So which is happening in life. It's a race. Everybody's the way the education system, it's a race. Or even in PK, Tapasvi ji had a point of view. He said, लोगों को तकलीफ होती है, कोई परेशानी होती है लाइफ में, जब अपना प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व नहीं करते हो, भगवान के पास जाते हैं. अगर एक धागा बांधने से उनको सुकून मिलता है, तो आप उनका सुकून तोड़ने वाले कौन होते हो? So we gave them strong points of view and then said, okay, now let's have a protagonist point of view and break these point of views. So that's what we've constantly done and tried to learn from. This was Baman's this thing. You can talk about it.
Fine triggers from life. Yeah, because, very early on, working with Raju, I realized how much we were reminiscing, how much we would recall from our lives. Now, these were not necessarily things which had happened to us, right? These were things sometimes which some friend had just told as an anecdote to us, something we had read in a paper happening to some other people. But one thing we understood was that if we remember this, there is a reason for this. Why do we remember something? Why does it have a claim on our memory? We don't remember what happened yesterday. Like where did we keep that key? 5 minutes ago, we can't remember. But we remember something from 30 years ago because it was so funny, or it was so moving, it was so shocking, right? So something has a claim on your memory even after 30 years, it's likely to be powerful. If you are affected by that, it's very likely that your audience will be similarly affected. So you are also making a claim on their memory through these kinds of moments. So off the bat, I recollect 2 moments from 3 Idiots. One is actually, it happened just 2 days back that I lost a friend in Ahmedabad. His name is Raju Nayak. And if you know Ahmedabad, there are poles which are very narrow streets. And this gentleman passed away, and he was my brother's friend. My brother Soumya Joshi's very close friend. And he had talked that in his pole, because people were peeing on the walls, somebody had put up that electric thing which we used in Three Idiots. Because my brother had told me this as an anecdote, you know. So when that guy does Mutra Visarjan on Rancho's door, and he gets an electric shock, right? That scene had the basis in a story from when I was maybe 20 when I had heard it, you know, and it came in handy at the time of 3 Idiots. So when we sit and chat about these things, they have a value because we remember. So some anecdote, something that we would try and make up, probably won't match that. So something that is in life has that kind of a power. There's another thing in 3 Idiots where, you know, Belan wala scene hai, you remember? When a person has eczema and the wife while doing roti, she does, वो बेलन से ऐसे उसको scratch करती है. So that one of my uncle Ramesh bhai, my mother's friend, he was in the US and early days of US immigration. He had reached there, and he went to one lady's house, his friend's house. His wife was cooking and she was wearing a sleeveless blouse. And he said that while doing making rotis, she would every now and then go. She was scratching her back through her blouse with the belan. And then at one point, she put it in her armpit. And at that point, he declared that, "Sir, मुझे गेहूं की allergy है." So मैं सिर्फ rice खाऊंगा. So I was extremely keen, along with this anecdote, for this line to come into the movie. But somehow the scene, the way it was going, we were not able to craft that line into it. So then after the scripting, I had gone away to the US, and then Raju, right after the shoot, he called me and gave me a good news that he had still managed to turn an extra screw in that scene. He said, "Usme ek baal dal diya hai." I'm sure you remember that hair in that black and white scene.
Actually, there's a clip, I think we should show that and then we can talk about this. It's a little longish clip. Actually, we'll get up so they can see it. But then, actually, what we were trying to make was triggers from life. See, you can write scenes from possibly what you've seen in other films or you've read somewhere. But the moment you pick what you've really experienced, somehow that find more resonance. So I'll tell you about this film. We had written the full film. And we had struggled with Abhijat had read, being from Ahmedabad, he went and read, I think, every possible book on this planet about Mahatma Gandhi. And we wanted to say so much about him. Then we realized that we can't say so much. We had to narrow it down to only two things, truth and non-violence. We wrote the whole film. I said, but still nobody will believe that non-violent ways can work in today's time. Nobody's going to believe us. So we decided to create 2 or 3 examples of goodness, of non-violence, which sound believable. For 6 months we struggled. We didn't have a scene which was believable. Then we were just digging into whatever we used to tell each other. And I had once told Abhijat that I had a very close friend when I had just come to Bombay, and I used to we used to go out to eat. And whenever we went to any one of the small Udupi restaurants we used to go to, and he would call the waiter, because the waiter would be busy, he would say, "Idhar aa." And I got very embarrassed. I said, "Aisa kyun bula raha hai?" And he said, "Yaar, paise de rahe, problem kya hai?" So this I had told Abhijat. Abhijat at some other point, a month later possibly, told me about a Gandhi quote, where he said that, Gandhiji has said that, if you want to judge a person, see how he behaves with somebody who is lower in strata than him. You know, with somebody bigger than you will behave decently, how he behaves. So actually, in that matrimonial scene, where he meets up, these 2 things came together to create a scene. So memory of that quote and memory of this issue, we were able to create a scene out of it. That spitting scene was something which had happened with my mother-in-law. She used to stay in Bandra East, in the MIG colony, and she was on the ground floor. First floor, people used to, there was some other lady, the kitchen was there, and from the kitchen she would throw the eggshells, cut vegetables, all the kachra would come down into a little patch of garden she had. And that would happen every day. So her maid, my mother-in-law's maid, would yell at that person, "Band karo, mat karo, kuch nahi karo," and nothing happened. So one day, she went to her little patch of garden, she picked up all the eggshells, she picked up all the vegetables, put it in a plastic packet, went up to the first floor, rang the bell. The lady of that house opened the door and she says, बहन जी आपका एक कुछ सामान रोज गिर जाता है, मैं आपको ले आया करूंगा, आप चिंता मत करना, मैं आपको पहुंचा दिया करूंगी. And it stopped. The next day it stopped. So by yelling it didn't stop, but goodness it stopped. So that scene got converted into the spitting scene. But these were all reflections from life which made us write those scenes and convert those scenes. Another thing that came to my mind now, actually, while I was watching this, since we were talking about editing, was when we had finished the edit of Lagaro Munna Bhai, one comment which was constantly coming from the reactions of people we were showing the film was, in the second half we don't see Gandhiji. You know, it's a film about Gandhiji and we don't see him. I said, now I can't just bring him. So what we did in the edit was, we created this song, Bande Mein Tha Dam. And whenever something happened, we played this song. So Anand wrote these lyrics, Bande Mein Tha Dam. And it keeps coming whenever any Gandhi deed happens, a good deed happens, we keep playing. So nobody in the film later complained that the presence of Gandhiji is not there. So it was an edit decision, again, not a scripted decision. Yeah.
He has done this in two songs. In this Bande Mein Tha Dam was a work of genius because he actually evoked Gandhiji through that song, and it was a miracle for me when I was watching these things come alive before my eyes, that he has assembled this montage and then he has given it a thematic unity. It was absolutely unbelievable. He has done it in Pal Pal also. That there was, you can tell that story, how you just too close.
I might not recall so much actually, but we had not shot that song. There was one song, Pal Pal Pal, which was, it's very difficult to explain. We didn't shoot that song, but I picked up images from some other song and put it in that. Then we showed it to somebody. They said, "Haan, images se theek ho raha hai, but lip sync nahi hai." So then we just took 2 hours and shot Vidya's lip sync and kind of close up and overlapped it with that. And so that song was never shot. It was just this 2 hours of shoot.
Shooting of that song is for 2 hours, and he has put together on the editing table images which were not being used in the film. He put them together and created a song out of that, which is again a miracle happening before my eyes. I got to see that. About triggers in life, I recall a small story that Salim Saab had told me, which I think I must share with you because it's one of the most important things. He said that once he had gone to Mohan's studio, I think, and one really tired worker was sleeping on the studio floor, and he was just sleeping. He could see that he was sweat, fatigue, everything, defeated, vanquished man lying on the floor. And then one guy walked in, arrogant bastard. He walked in and he, with his foot, he woke this guy up. And he had a cigarette in his mouth, this man who woke him up, and he said, "Machis hai kya?" So he said, "Machis hota na saab, to puri duniya ko aag laga deta." And Salim Saab said that he used this line in a film as Mr. Jackie Shroff's introduction line. So he used that line. He said that the moment this line was uttered, the theater was filled with claps. And he said that those were the last claps in that entire film. because this he had picked from life. And it had the vitality and the pulse of something which he had experienced. And he said the rest was sort of, he was not very kind about his own writing for what happened to the rest, because it was not coming from life. So that's the vitality of that experience which every writer should strive to bring in to his work.
Yeah, so I guess that brings us to the last quote, which says, "Writer writes the first draft and editor the last." I'm sure editors will be very happy today. So thank you so much.
The only thing I could tell the writers is to try to be a part of the edit after the first cut is made and see that where the film is, because sometimes you are able to contribute to the editor. So you may not know how to cut a film, but you may be able to give certain ideas that, hey, can you try this? Can you try this? Because you know that, hey, this is not working at the level of the story. So help. It's a collaborative process, so everybody has to chip in. And so sometimes the writers just go away. They deliver the draft and they go away. They don't see through the film. You know, so even after the edit is done, they should see it, and there might be some potential, because Raju is capable, as he's a writer, he is a director, he's an editor. He's capable of doing things that he does, which are miraculous. Everybody might not have that capacity. So it being a collaborative process, I think the writer also director should be involved in giving these things to try and contribute. That's how I see the whole.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have to say that Abhijat is always there when the first cut is made. He's the first person to see it, and he comes and says, "This is an extra line, or this line should have been something else." And sometimes I wonder, "Now, how am I going to remove it?" But you keep striving, and it happens sometime. In fact, I remember Three Idiots was being played, and it had released, and we went to a theater to see the reaction. I think the second or the third day, we were in an auditorium. I think Chandan was. We were watching the film, standing in one corner, and suddenly Abhijat taps at me, and he says, "Bharo." I said, "Kya ho gaya?" He said, "Yaar, यहाँ पे ये line, ये ऐसी नहीं होनी, दूसरी होनी चाहिए थी. We should have put that line." I said, "Abhijat, the film has released. It's doing very well. People are loving it. Now just take it out of the system. It's over." He said, "But the DVD has not released. No, we can change it there. No." So thank you so much for being a great audience.